America is facing a seismic shift, and to get the stories behind the noise, the media sound bites, social media, and big data, we spoke with a cross-section of Americans in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement.
Based on what we heard, if we're to unite this nation, we're going to need to foster change from the bottom up, together. No one is coming to save us. The idea of America is hard, and our promise as a nation is our greatest challenge. While we take immense pride in our independence and freedom, our research reveals that we seem to be ready to develop a stronger sense of weism versus meism.
This individual thing, which the US was founded on, I get it. And this isn't about socialism or communism or anything else like this. This is just, there is a different way of doing things, and it's not always about me. It's about us. We have a lot of Canadian friends, and the Canadians they're bored like we are, but their government has asked them to do something, and they've said, okay. And they bitch and moan about it, but they're not in the streets with flags or guns or anything like that. And we were having a conversation on the phone, and she says, well, you know, the difference between you guys and us is that we got our freedom through evolution. You got yours through revolution. That is a very different way of sort of looking at the way the two countries look at freedom. Mm-hmm. You know, one is, I had to fight for all of this. The other is, I just let it sort of happen. The English were going to get tired of us anyway. so now that has permeated through our society over the 250, almost 300 years that we have been around. That's kind of how we are. It's about individual rights.
There can be too much of a good thing, even freedom, right? If we're not using it responsibly, then it's too much of a good thing. And so there are other countries that don't have the level of freedom that we have. Until we step outside, we don't understand what a privilege it is. And that if we did understand how precious it was, we would not take such advantage of it.
Cool, yeah, great, freedom, yes. But I feel like that doesn't instill much. Like, oh, cool, it's fun to say, but that doesn't really mean anything to me versus like, okay, you know, this person started out in this part in life, they worked their butt off, and, you know, yes, they had mentors, they had help along the way, and they were able to, obtain something great for them.
And you kind of say, oh, we've been the greatest, we're always the greatest. It just kind of discredits you more and more that you are not able to acknowledge what's really happening.
Part of saving ourselves is recognizing that we are all in this together. And our best shot is to focus on what's going on in our local communities and make change from the bottom up.
In fact, local governance has always been a strength of the American system. Alexis de Tocqueville, the French historian and political thinker who traveled the U.S. in the mid-1800s, wrote, "Decentralization has not only administrative value, but also a civic dimension, since it increases the opportunities for citizens to take interest in public affairs. It makes them get accustomed to using freedom. And from the accumulation of these local active persnickety freedoms is born the most efficient counterweight of the central government."
Washington, D.C. and the so-called political divide are taking up all the oxygen in the room. But you can see real change by listening to new, young, local leaders.
It just makes more sense for our leadership to represent us as a community and let that leader come from the community, which I feel like that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's like somewhere in here we're seeing little bits and pieces and something's going to really blossom. That's my hope.
When you share your struggles, it just makes you more qualified to be a leader. Like, it's okay. But when you pretend that things are okay and you lie and hide things, like, I don't trust you then. So I think an open leader and to admit your mistakes. We're all human. It's okay. Just be honest.
Every day this week, 1:00, press conference related to coronavirus in the state of Rhode Island. We spent a lot of time in the past couple of days cranking through the data, reviewing all the information we have from our case investigations. And in general, it's a good news story. We're not out of the woods. Coronavirus is with us. Sadly, we still lose people every day. But I come before you today with a sense of confidence that the steps we've taken and the systems we've put in place to protect the people of Rhode Island, by and large, are working, and we are continuing to operate safely, learning to live with the coronavirus.
It's been a long week, but it was an impactful day. We had a great discussion at City Council. 6 hours, I think, we went on about police policies with the chief. We heard, I think it was ultimately about 50 residents. That may not sound a lot, but that's about 3 hours of comments, and there was a lot of passion and a lot of impactful observations. And I went immediately from there to 2 hours with the leadership of Black Lives Matter, and we found some common ground that we can work on. And then I came down here and I've been watching the media coverage, and especially last night, it was really peaceful, and it was really thoughtful. I mean, I don't know if you were. I can't remember if you were down there, but I mean, people were just standing in the middle of the street talking, for hours, apparently all night. And I wanted to see that continue, and I really wanted to lift the curfew. So I thought I'd put my money where my mouth was and come down here and try to make sure that it's a peaceful night.
This election has never been about me. This election has never been about just my ideas. It's been about all of the hopes and dreams that we have as individuals and collectively in this city.
Stamford is an interesting city in that we are obviously in the shadow of New York. And so it ends up being fairly affluent versus the other cities that are around the state. It's also diverse economically, racially, religiously. I've been impressed with the receptivity within our city of the changes that people are demanding. I also have been impressed at the openness to protests and to rallies, the participation of our government leaders. I mentioned the census rally that I went to. The mayor was there, the superintendent of schools was there, multiple representatives from the city as well as the state all participated. After the death of George Floyd occurred, and the first early ones in Stamford, the police marched with the citizens right from day one and acknowledged we have problems and we need to address them. And I feel like we do have problems. There's other places that probably have more severe problems, but we have an opportunity to really be leaders in that area.
I believe we've got to start to educate folks, the people that we serve. It's around community organizing, around the fact that yes, they do have a voice. Yes, they can, enact change. They can go to the voting booths. They can go to town hall meetings. They can go to the superintendent's office. I mean, we have got to make our folks feel valued and that they do have a voice. And there are some wonderful examples of that. Over at P.T. Barnum, there's a program of single moms and a low-income community, right? Housing authority-based community. They advocated for their kids to get a new school. They've advocated for more police. Yeah, it's not always about Hartford or Washington. Right. We're great at convening politicians and leaders and nonprofit executives, but we're not so good at convening the people in the trenches and living this each and every day.
I think Chef Andre is trying to point us to at least for feeding people, trying to point us to the direction that we really should be going in. You know, one guy has fed something like 7 or 8 million people today in this country. He's a hero. He's the kind of person that I want to continue following, just because I think he's the kind of guy that's saying, I can help make a difference.
Gen Z is challenging us and can help us realize our greatest potential because they're the largest, most diverse group in U.S. history.
They are focused on social issues and the most adept at tapping into the power that we glean from all types of people. And they are smart and not afraid to speak out.
My name is Naomi and I'm 11 years old. Me and my friend Carter led a walkout at our elementary school on the 14th. I represent the African American women who are victims of gun violence, who are simply statistics instead of vibrant, beautiful girls that full of potential. I'm here to say never again for those girls too.